Let's go, my friends. Let's have fun together. This student goes online to search for the easiest way to die. However, he finds an ad for a high-class taxi service with the slogan, "Don't die, take revenge. We will help you." The boy bursts into tears. He picks up the phone to contact the high-end taxi service. However, thinking that it is just a joke, he stops again the next day. The boy struggles to go to school on one leg since the other is broken. However, when he sees the 3 bullies in the class who often bully him in school, he cannot dare to enter the classroom anymore. Instead, he turns around and leaves when he goes to his mother's fish shop. He sees his mother working. She is both mute and deaf and is struggling to invite customers to buy fish with her advertisement board. This scene makes the boy feel even sadder, and he no longer knew who to turn to. He decides to call the taxi service he has just found last night. The person who picks up this phone call is Sancho, the director of the taxi service. He immediately assigns this task to the driver. The taxi driver drives the taxi to meet the customer boy. Upon reaching, he presses the button to open the car door so the boy can get into the cab. While sitting in the taxi, the boy asks the driver where they are going. The driver immediately tells him that they are going to take revenge. Then the boy begins narrating his tearful story to this driver. His name is Park Young-min, and he transferred to a new school a few months earlier. During break, 3 classmates intentionally approach him, making sarcastic remarks about the persistent fishy smell around. Responding calmly, Young-min explains that the smell was because mother ran a fish shop. Following that incident, Young-min becomes the continual target of senseless torment from the trio seeking help. He approaches his new teacher. However, instead of support, he receives advice to befriend his bullies, adding insult to injury. The teacher criticizes the fishy smell on Young-min's clothes. As Young-min leads the encounter, he is seized by the 3 bullies who issue threats they force him into to joining them at a karaoke spot. There, they subject him to a brutal beating, strip him of his clothes, and steal all his money. On one occasion, when Young-min has nothing to offer, the boys shove him onto the road. As he falls on the road, a guy in the group runs his bike over Young-min's leg to make it look like an accident. They did that to get compensation from insurance the next day. This time, Young-min decides to fight back. He reports the incident to the police. However, instead of solving the case, the police officer only assigns the responsibility to the school violence committee. He then tells Young-min to go home and wait for the committee to take action. Young-min returns home only to see the bullies having dinner with his mother. They have arrived to give Young-min a warning. They even threaten to stab his mother, leaving him with no other option but to stay silent. When the principal inquires about Young-min's injury in the committee meeting, he hesitates. He claims he tripped while playing, concealing the truth out of fear of the bullies. Despite his attempt to shield himself for reality, his mother senses something amiss and encourages him to speak up. However, Young-min remains tight-lipped after the bullies apologize for playing recklessly. The principal advises Young-min against taking the matter beyond the school premises. Returning to the present, the driver hands Young-min an envelope before dropping him off at a game station. Inside, he discovers instructions detailing the game number. As Young-min starts playing, a fairy within the game explains the rules. While the company works on his request, the taxi meter keeps running. He'll settle the fare once the task is completed. Depending on the circumstances, additional charges might apply. Lastly, Young-min is requested not to disclose the taxi game to anyone else. Unable to choose what he should do, Young-min decides to leave the place. However, rethinking how the bullies mistreated him, he presses the yes button and gives his consent to take revenge in the underground basement. The taxi service team listens to his story. Sancho remarks that it might not be a big case for them, but for Young-min, it is a matter of life or death. The team member Goon begins her research and learns about one of the bullies. Soon-tae, his father, donates money to the school, allowing him to do whatever he wants. The photographs of the bullies are printed out, after which Sunch briefs his team on the project. Though the perpetrators are all minor, it doesn't make their crimes any lighter, so they must carry out the task task, like any other, the taxi driver. Doggy activates his meter and heads to restaurant, initiating the next phase of the operation. There, he intentionally grabs someone else's food and mixes something in it. The food turns out to be that of young men's teacher. Doughy apologizes and gives him back his platter. The teacher falls ill because of the mixture, allowing Doi to apply to the same school as a substitute teacher. Grateful for the timely help, the principal welcomes Doggy and assigns him to teach math, a subject he's not confident in. Upon introduction to the class, Doggy starts out by taking attendance as predicted. Sun disrupts the class, leading with a casual remark about the pleasant weather outside. After the class, two other bullies, Hyung-sik and Haku, throw empty cans at Doggy and ask him for a favor. One of them asks Doggy if he has a cigarette, to which Doi responds how a student can ask his teacher. Such a question, S intervenes and begins ridiculing Doggy, saying he is just a part-time worker, not their teacher. To teach Doggy a lesson, he slapped his friend and then starts shouting that the new teacher has hit him, acting along. Doggy tries to calm them down. However, Sun's behavior worsens, and he grabs Doi's wallet and steals his money. With the money, the trio flees from the area, leaving Doggy frustrated. Sharing his experience with Goon, Doggy expresses feeling mugged. However, Goon playfully mocks him, highlighting that his own students mugged him later the day. Sun orders Haksu to get some goodies, as he plans to impress some girls following orders. Cheksu approaches an elderly woman, offering money in exchange for a favor. As minors, they're unable to purchase cigarettes, so they exploit the older woman's assistance. However, instead of fulfilling their promise of payment, Haku hands over his leftover ramen soup and swiftly departs. The trio heads to a club to spend time with their girlfriends, as pulls up the stolen cigarettes, reveling in the moment. Goen observes their activities through a hidden camera pan installed by Doggy Curious Go and questions how they can enjoy with ill-gotten money. Doggy explains the gradual descent of seemingly ordinary teenage boys into a darker path while the trio enjoys their time. Men in black suits approach them. The leader engages with Sunte, who hands over a sum of cash. It is revealed that these boys are more than just bullies. The next day, the friends are smoking cigarettes in the bathroom and bullying another of their classmates while they are threatening. For money, Doggy appears from the toilet room. He pretends to have some work with the student. When Waas refuses to let the student go, Doggy reminds him that he is their teacher and they must obey him. Despite his reluctance, Doggy manages to take the student with him at S's house. The team plans to teach Doi a lesson. S has an idea. The next day, the friends approach the older man to buy cigarettes. Fortunately, the older man has a stash specifically for students who can't legally purchase them after obtaining the cigarettes. Haku approaches Doi, claiming that someone's parents are waiting for him in the library as Doggy leaves. Haku covertly inserts explicit content into Doi's bag, while keeping a watchful eye on the surroundings. Meanwhile, Sun threatens a girl to trap Doggy when she refuses to do that to a teacher. Sun grabs her from her hair and warns her of the consequences of her disobedience. A few moments later, Doggy enters the library and begins finding the parents. However, he couldn't find anyone. Meanwhile, the girl removes her sweater and leaves the Lee library, acting like a victim, shouting at the top of her lungs. She draws everyone's attention when the female teacher asks what has happened to her. The girl accuses Doggy of having her nude photographs in his bag, is standing there laughing as he sees his plan working. The female teacher takes the girl, with her seeing Doggy as the culprit. On the other hand, the principal receives a call from an unknown number and learns about the incident. He is shocked and infuriated to hear this, while a female teacher is taking the girl to inspect Doi's bag. She insults Doggy. She says she will ensure Doggy won't get to teach again on his way to the teacher's room. Doggy winks as adding to the complexity of the situation. Everyone is called to the classroom, where the principal rebukes Doggy for letting something wrong happen during his supervision. When asked, "Where is Sun seat?" Doggy points it out. Infuriated, the principal dashes towards Sun C and begins unloading his bag. Inside, he finds the dirty magazine and pictures of the girl. Now, Sass is portrayed as the culprit. The female teacher asks the girl "What happened in the library?" To which the girl responds that there was a bug in her clothes, as the teacher bursts out. In rage at the girl, we see Doi smiling at Sun. A flashback shows how the magazine ended up in Sun's bag. It turns out that when Haku came up to Doggy to call him in the library, something happened. Beyond Haku's imagination, his actions were being recorded by the camera pen Doggy had left on his desk as he was putting magazine. He was being watched. By Goen, she took matters into her own hands and entered the school wearing a uniform pretending to be a student. She went to the teacher's room and stole the magazine from Doggy's bag. After carefully putting that magazine in Sun's bag, she called the principal and informed him about the pictures. As the truth comes out, the female teacher apologizes to Doggy, who now fake cries to gather her sympathies after getting rebuked by the teacher and the principal. S held his friend responsible for the incident. He accuses his friend of deliberately making a fool out of him. As he starts beating the boy, Haku steps in and instructs him to calm down. However, Sun gets infuriated and holds HXU by the neck, warning him not to intervene in his matters. As the trio leaves the school, they witnessed 2 police officers finding the bag of cigarettes and arresting the older man. It turns out that the old man was selling marijuana. When questioned by the police about the sale of cigarettes, the old man identifies the bullies as the buyers. Before the police could catch them, they managed to flee from the scene. The old man is arrested, and to avoid the same fate, the boys dig the ground and bury the cigarettes there. The next day, S addresses the class and threatens them, saying if anyone talks to the teacher, he will kill them. The class starts, and DOI says good morning to everyone, but nobody answers him. Seeing Sun is playing games, DOI requests him not to do that in the classroom. However, Sun keeps provoking Doggy, even frustrating him, so he can show violence. Haku keeps recording in order to catch the perfect moment when Do's rage gets out of control. It will help them get rid of Doggy, easily realizing Sun's game. Doi announces that they won't study today, but will be watching some videos to everyone's shock. Doi plays the video of the 3 bullies burying marijuana on the mountain. As the trio was shocked to see the video, Doggy turns off the TV, saying it was a mistake. After the school ends, the bullies ask Doggy about the video. Doggy responds that he went to the mountain to capture the beautiful view and found them burying the cigarette, so he videotaped them. The boys keep explaining that they don't smoke weed. Doggy keeps playing along and assures them he won't reveal their secret to anyone later. The bullies head to the mountain and begin digging the ground, but they cannot find weed anywhere. At that moment, S receives a call from Doggy, who reveals that he handed the weed to the police. He asserts his responsibility as a citizen, yet Doggy reassures Sun that he didn't disclose any information regarding him, as DOI persistently taunts Sun with a mix of sweetness and underlying negativity. Sun finds himself feeling helpless in the face of the situation. The next day, Doggy continues to irritate Sun, demanding that he bring food for him. When Sun declines, Doggy uses the previous weed incident as leverage, threatening to expose him if he doesn't comply. Fearing the consequences, Sun reluctantly does whatever Doggy asks to add to Sun's for frustration. Doi even instructs him to keep the change for himself, further fueling his anger. The trio searches on the internet and finds that having weed is illegal and they can end up in jail for 5 years. Scared to spend their lives in prison, Sun calls Doggy and gives him death threats as the trio returns home. They are shocked to see Doggy playing games with his father. S is scared about getting exposed in front of his father later. Doggy enters Sun's room and makes himself comfortable on the bed. He then asks the trio for money, 1.5 million each, if they tell anyone about it. Doggy threatens to inform the cops about the weed possession. Sante agrees to fulfill his demand, but he puts a condition: he will decide date and time after. Doggy leaves. Sun calls someone for help. In the afternoon, Doggy finds young men and encourages him to return to school starting next week. He's worried that skipping might become a habit that's hard to break. As a gesture of care, Doggy offers young men some food. Afterwards, young men assists his mother in closing up their shop when asked about the food. Young men discloses that his homeroom teacher was a generous giver on their journey home. Youngnen's mother affectionately holds his hand, expressing her unwavering love for her son. The following day, Doggy arrives at the school's rooftop and discovers a swarm of men dressed in black suits taking over the area. As he proceeds to get the money, Gon asks if they should set it up, to which Doggy says yes. A clash erupts between Dodgy and the man with agility. DOI evades each, assailant targeting their leader, directly witnessing their leader under attack. The men retaliate, however they prove no match for Doggy's combat skills, while Doggy is engrossed in combat. Sun attempts a sneak attack from behind. However, when Dodgy senses the impending attack, Sun freezes unable to make a move. Doggy continues to showcase his extraordinary prowess, swiftly neutralizing every thug in his path. When a thug tries to attack him with a flower pot, Doggy swiftly leaps, shattering the pot in midair. The trio stands stunned by Doi's unforeseen abilities after clearing the area of the man. Doggy shifts his focus to Sun as Doi proceeds towards him. Sun takes a step back, however soon. There is no place for him to move back. Doggy tells him that he cannot gather the courage to jump, but still, he pushes the people and hurts them with that. Said Doggy kicks him, sending Sun off the rooftop as he focuses his attention on the other boys. They begin apologizing, begging Doggy to spare their lives because of the fear. They even pee their pants when Doggy brings up Young Men's name. The duo was stunned. The next thing we know, they surrender themselves to the police, telling the officer how they bullied their friends. They urge the officer to lock them up as they don't want to end up like Sun. It seems like Doggy has taught them a good lesson and they won't threaten, bully, or beat anyone ever again. Later, Doggy enters a bakery shop where he has kept someone. Someone is none other than Sun. It turns out that when Go-eun asks Doi to set something up, she was talking about the giant inflatable bed after he said yes. Two of the team members, Kang-gu and Jian, inflated the bed. When Sing fell, he landed straight on the bed. Because of the fear, he went unconscious. Doggy contacts the gangster Sun, whom he encountered on the rooftop, and lets him have a conversation with S instead of assistants. The man issues a warning advising S not to contact him again and to listen to his teacher. Shock deepens upon hearing Young Men's name. Doggy informs him that everything he eats is on Young Men, but anything he can't finish, he'll have to pay. For furthermore, each pastry will cost him an amount equal to compensating Young Men for all the physical and emotional harm he caused. Sun apologizes, saying that he doesn't have any money. This is when Doggy reveals that he has found a job for him by working there. Sun can quickly settle his debts, then don't warn Sun that if he tries to escape, he'll catch him and make him cough up. 10 times more confused about his situation, Sunta receives advice from Doggy to recall the emotions of the students he once bullied. What he's going through now is payback to mark this. Fresh start. DOI grabs a cake, lights it, and celebrates Sun's new beginning. Afterwards, Doggy meets Young Men, handing him the receipt for the deluxe taxi service. When Young Men expresses concern over the high cost, Doggy advises him to pay whatever he can monthly. It will make him even stronger, grateful for Doggy's guidance. Young Men thanks him and exits the taxi. Meanwhile, Sun Chel approaches Young Men's mother, revealing that his organization has awarded Young Men a scholarship upon graduation and college entry. The firm will cover his fees and expenses. Overwhelmed with emotion, Young Men's mother repeatedly thanks Sun Chul for this generous scholarship, with Young Men's life returning to normal and a brighter future ahead. He returns to school in his tax. Doggy keeps an eye out, ensuring everything's okay. Just like that, the deluxe taxi keeps playing a crucial role in helping people seek revenge and reclaim their lives. Meanwhile, we see a woman named Maria crying she is injured, and it seems like she is ready to end her life. As she stands on the other side of the railing, her slipper falls into the river, scaring her even more. She keeps crying while saying that she doesn't want to die. Just then, her eyes are laid on the deluxe taxi service and saying, "Don't die, take revenge." Mariah calls the number. DOI arrives to pick her up soon. Maria asks him where they are going to, which Doggy responds that they are going to take revenge. He then turns on the audio recorder and asks Maria what has happened to her. A flashback shows that Maria is an orphan and is intellectually disabled. It means she is 18 years old, but her mental age is around 1st to 2nd grade, as she was old enough to find a job. She bid farewell to her friends who had pitched in to buy a goodbye gift for her. Soon a social worker picks her up from the church and informs her about her new job. She will be working in a factory and dealing with computer work. Maria is really excited, as she always dreamed about doing a job to buy gifts for her friends approaching there. She signed a contract that she didn't read. At first, everything went well. Even the manager, John Gunn, was very polite and understanding with her. Maria even shared with him how skilled she was in Excel after the meeting ended. The social worker left the factory. Jian-gun showed Maria around, and after the tour, ordered her to descale. The fish confused, Maria said that her work is related to computers. Still polite, Jian-gun assured her that he would give her computer work after that. However, Maria denied saying that she was afraid of fish. Just then, the factory owner, Juan, arrived upon hearing that Maria wasn't ready to work. He grabbed her from hair and submerged her head in the fish water. He then asked her if she was still afraid of fish. He then slapped Maria really hard, knocking her to the ground. He doesn't stop there. He begins hitting Maria with random objects. They intensify their torture by putting Maria in a drum with a freezing temperature to decrease the temperature further. Juan adds a bunch of salt and then closes the lid again with a sack. What they did next was even more horrifying. They opened the drum after a while and poured hot water on Maria, waking her up. After enduring so much torture, Maria agreed to work for Juan. She would cry while describing the fish one night. Maria tried to escape, and she did succeed. She found a police officer on her way and urged for help. The police officer turned out to be corrupt, as he took her back to Juchan's factory, where she was tortured again. They put her in the lid, while the police officer and Juchan had dinner together. Instead of helping the girl, the police officer splashed water on her already freezing body. He told her not to run away, but to consider the factory as her home and work there. Without creating trouble to the distress, he made it clear he wouldn't rescue her in the future to make matters worse. John Gunn later called Maria into another room and subjected her to sexual assault. This horrifying experience led Maria to attempt suicide after being taken to the hospital. She managed to escape and headed to a bridge with the intention of taking her own life once again in the present day. Doggy drops her off at the game station and rides away with the instructions in her hand. Maria begins playing the game. The screen shows if she wants to take revenge on the manager and the boss. Maria presses the revenge button, allowing all the team members to get the message that there is a mission ahead. They immediately leave their work and arrive at the underground area to discuss the mission. Kangoo requests Go to change their pager, as it seems old and he wants to switch to a smart. However, Goen responds that smartphones are a bit risky, so they must stick to the pager. Soon, the team gathers to listen to Maria's story. Suncho pinned the photographs of Juti and John Gunn to the board. He tells the team how the duo was known as a hard-working businessman community. They are by the police officer. That's why it is easier for them to cover up their crimes. Hearing her heart-wrenching story, Goen decides that they should immediately expose those businessmen. Other team members also agree with her, and just like that, another mission begins. Dogi hops into his taxi, sneaking out from the underground building. Meanwhile, Goen, Kangoo, and Gon prepped their van, turning it into a food spot to infiltrate the factory. Doi also scopes out the factory, checking its ins and outs. Later that night, when Chuch-chan and Junun get hungry, they grab a pamphlet of the chicken spot that Kinu and Jean gave them earlier. Jae-nyun thanks for the fast delivery, unaware that he has fallen right into their trap. Little do they know the Deluxe service team has spiked the food with sleeping powder. As a result, Doggy scales the factory wall and slips inside thanks to the stive-laced chicken. Juan and John Gunn are peacefully asleep. With precision, Doggy inserts a USB into JN Gunn's phone, granting Goen access to all the crucial data. Doggy finds a safe in one of the rooms and asks for Go's help to unlock it with the data recovered from the phone. Goen manages to come up with the code. Doggy enters the code, but finds nothing in the safe, returning to the living area. Doggy picks up Jae Engon's phone, only to find wrongly taken photographs of Maria. The discovery fuels Doggy's desire for revenge on her behalf. Even more, the next day, Doggy takes on the guise of a customer entering the factory grounds. While he is exploring, Xuan intercepts him and inquires about his arrival, sporting an innocent smile. Doggy claims to be in search of seafood, guiding him to his office. Juan offers coffee soon. John Gunn joins, and they talk business. In the conversation, Doggy expresses interest in purchasing 50 drums of seafood to prove his credibility. He unveils his briefcase, displaying the money at his disposal. Spotting the cash, the greet of the duo kicks in, prompting them to propose a deal for 50 drums in 2 days. Doggy must make a 50% advance payment, accepting the terms Doggy seals. The agreement with a signature, unaware of the impending twist. Juan and Jae-gun enthusiastically confirm the order. Unfortunately, half of the drums turn out to be infested with maggots. Ju-chan assigns John-gon the task of sorting and dispatching these tainted drums to schools and the military. Furthermore, it's revealed that they're importing this fish internationally, rebranding it domestically with a Made in Korea label, to inflate profits. Kangoo and Ji and manage to hear their conversation, allowing them to learn about their deceit. Later on, Jae-gun vents to the insurance worker, Jun, suck about Maria. He insists on bringing someone less likely to escape his comments, displease Young-suk, and she advises Jae-gun not to be overly selective. Shuan steps in, reminding her that if she's claiming 15% of their profits, she needs to execute her role efficiently. During their discussion about Maria, Yoon-suk disclosed that Maria had contacted her once before and that she might contact her again. She asserts that as soon as she pinpoints Maria's whereabouts, she'll inform Juan. Additionally, even in the event of Maria's demise, there's a 400 million insurance policy with Chush-chan as the beneficiary. In both scenarios, they stand to benefit unknown to them. Their entire conversation is overheard by the deluxe service team. Courtesy of the bug discreetly installed by Doggy Cohen, reveals that Junuk has enrolled Maria in 10 insurance programs. Half of her monthly wage was used to pay her plans. Maria wasn't aware of this, as she never got paid. Pretending to be a customer, Sun-chul visits the insurance company and asks to meet Young-suk. After hearing about the insurance plans, Sun-chul leaves the office saying that he will visit again as Jung-suk is waiting for a taxi. Outside the office, Sun-chul offers her a ride. When asked if he's decided on the insurance, Sun-chul suggests discussing it during the ride, as he's in a hurry. Agreeing, Jung-suk enters the car, only for Kangoo to render her unconscious with a taser. They tape her mouth and disguise her with a hat to conceal her identity upon waking up. Jung-suk pleads for her life, insisting she's merely a social worker. Sun-chul calmly informs her they're taking her to the factory, promising decent treatment. Despite her protest, Kangoo incapacitates her once more with the taser, as she continues to scream, "Me!" Meanwhile, Jae-gun lines up 50 barrels of seafood. However, on his way to the factory, a masked man, likely Doggy, intercepts him, armed with a wrench from the truck. Jae-gun engages in a showdown with Doggy. Unfortunately, things take a turn for the worse, as Doggy sends him flying through the air, crashing back down with a nasty neck and ship still shell. He places another 20 barrel, warning that this time they miss the deadline, will hit them with a double, breaching the contract. Once Juan seals the deal, Dog's his exit. Juan off Kim has discovered Maria's whereabouts. Off Kim rushes Dog follow him discreetly. He fixes a metal frame to the front of his taxi and rams it into Officer Kim's car, maneuvering the frame into the vehicle and forcing it off course with a twist of the steering wheel. Officer Kim's car catapults into the air, crashing down. Doi swiftly retrieves a black box from the officer's vehicle and vanishes from the scene. Meanwhile, Maria joins Sun-cho's taxi company, taking on computer tasks. Cohen acknowledges Maria's skills and excel. During their conversation, Maria takes a pill when asked. She discloses that Junun gave her the pills for strength. Curious about the pills, Purpose Goen takes them for examination. Subsequently, she contacts Doggy, revealing that Jungin had been giving Maria birth control pills. Doggy's making a move to swipe those DRS again on Younggun's way back to the factory. DOI blocks his path, but this time, Junun isn't alone. He's brought back up. It turns into a scuffle between DOI and the guys. DOI is pretty slick with his kicks and punches, gaining the upper hand. Junun tries to attack, but DOI stops him and keeps landing punches until Gun hits the ground. While all this is happening, Juhan calls Junun but has no luck. Dog has got Junun and tied him to a pole. At first, Junun yells for help, but then it sinks in that Doi's the one behind this mess. Meanwhile, Doggy gets a call from Juchan, who mentions the guy he sent to fetch the drums has gone missing. He promises Doggy 70 drums by tomorrow. Doggy warns warns if he doesn't get them, there will be a price to pay with that. He hangs up, leaving Chuch-chan, worried sick, to dodge the penalty. Chuch-chan hits the internet to hunt down some seafood drums, but with Go-in keeping an eye on his search history, she steps in pretending to be a seller and takes the order. Kongu and John play the role of delivery guys, dropping off the drums at Ju-chan's factory. They can't resist poking fun at Juan, wondering why a seafood factory needs to buy seafood from other sellers. Once the duo splits, Juan heads back into the factory only to bump into Doi. Curious, Juan asks who he is, and Doggy coolly declares himself as their seafood thief. A brawl breaks out between the two, armed with a stick. Ju-chan tries to strike, however Doggy outmuscles him, lifting and slamming him against the wall. Juan attempts a comeback, but Doggy proves too formidable. In the heat of the clash, Doi's mask slips, exposing his identity to Juan. Infuriated, Juan lashes out, labeling Doggy a scumbag and launching an attack. Dodging the blows, Doggy delivers a powerful punch, sending Juan crashing to the floor. In a tense moment, Doggy questions Ju-chan's morality, calling him out for exploiting people with disabilities. He points out how Juan makes them work like dogs and assaults him daily. With Ju-chan's face bloody, Doggy seizes him by the hair and submerges his head in water, mirroring the cruel act Juan once inflicted on Maria. He then kicks him out of the factory and locks him up in the drum. He is being treated just like he treated others with Juan and Junun. Out of the picture, the team steps up to determine the company's future. Sun Chul proposes a plan where the company's earnings directly benefit disabled employees. Turns out, Chuch-cha had manipulated things and registered the company under a disabled worker's name, making it simpler for some CH to transition ownership to the employees with disabilities to cover the taxi. Fair, the team sells the drums and manages to gather the necessary funds. As the mission wraps up, Mariah receives a heartwarming surprise from her orphanage friend. They have the toys she always wanted to buy for them. Stepping outside the factory, she spots a deluxe taxi driving away, revealing Doggy's kind gesture. He's the one who bought the gifts for the kids.